We're now on Daf Yud Gimel and Beis, and we're up to the second line. Omar Rav. Omar Rava Toda Zika Gove Mibsara V'Eina Gove Milachma. Today is the day of Kodesh. So we have now a carbon Toda, which is a carbon that's brought together with 40 Lachme Toda that escort or are auxiliary parts of the carbon. And now this behema that is a carbon toda went ahead and was mazik. Now the din is that a shartam is only collectible migufa, and therefore the nizak can only be govim mibsara. The ena govim milachma. In other words, the 40 lechamim that accompany the carbon toda are not responsible in any way for collection or compensation for the hezek. The hezek is only migufa and not from the lechamim. Why is it that Rav had to tell me that you're not govim mi lechamim? I mean, a short time you only collect migufa. The lechem is not part of the mazik, you know. If the lechem was mazik, then you could say that's migufa, but the lechem was not mazik, the shor was mazik. The Gemara answers Sefer Yitzruchle. The Chiddush is not Rav's Reisha, namely that he cannot collect his damages from the Lechamim, but rather from the Sefer. And what does Rav say in the Sefer? Nizak ochel basar umiskaper. I'm sorry. Umiskaper mevi lechem. Well, Rav is telling me a Chiddush in Hilchas Karbonos. And what happens now? The nizak takes over the animal. He becomes the bala karma. And if he's the bala karban, then after the makriv de murim, he will eat the basa. The nizak will eat the basa. However, who's going to eat the lachme toda, the 40 lachamim? It's the mazik, the owner of the shar, who is magdish this as a carbon toda. Gemara says, Hanami Pshita. That's a chiddush. After all, the nizak is not mechuyev in a carbon. He'll only bring the carbon because he became like the quasi bailim of the carbon. What was the havamina that the nizak himself would have to bring the lechamim? Now, he wasn't the mischayev of the carbon. He's not the miskaper. The miskaper is the bala carbon. So why would the nizak be chayiv to eat the 40 lechamim? Allowed to and chayiv to eat the 40 lechamim. That's pshit. Oh, now we get to the havami. Mao de Tamer, I would have said, Kevin the lechem hechshera de zevach lemale. The mazik says to the nizak, Ato chalt bosa. You're eating the bosa of the carbon. Then you should eat its hechsher as well. Ano I see lechem. You should be the one to bring the lechem, because the whole purpose of the lechem is to accompany what? The basa. He calls it a machshir of the basa. Well, guess what? You're getting the basa. You should get the lechamim, meaning your responsibility is to bring the lechamim. In other words, that even though the nizak is bringing the carbon and eating the basa, but he's not the baal, he's not the miskaper. The miskaper is the one who was chayav a carbon toda. He was one of the four people that had a miracle, and he has to bring a carbon toda. So he remains the bala carbon in hilchas kapar. Who's the bala carbon in hilchas moment? It's the nizak, because he's gover migufa. And therefore the nizak, even though he's going to eat the basar, but nevertheless the lechamim belong to the miskap. And therefore the original bala karb will have to bring 40 lechamim, and he's chayiv in achilas halacham. There's a very interesting chakira here. I'll just mention on the side. It really doesn't belong to Daf Yomi of the Ketzos HaChoshen. Rabbi Yossi Agli says that you can sell a carbon, Kodshim Kalim, because it's Mom and Bailim. And the Ketzos HaChoshen declares, once you sell the carbon to someone else, are you selling the kapara or just the hefza of the basar of the carbon? Nafkamina. Let's say his chaver who purchased this carbon, the shlamim, took a neder to bring such a carbon. Let's say he took a neder to bring a shlamim, because shlamim is isa b'nedava. V'im ata kones hakarbon mechavero. Can he fulfill his obligation, his neder, by bringing that carbon? And if you're going to tell me that the mechira of Rabbi Yossi Aglili based on Mom and Bailim is a full-fledged mechira that transfers not only the ownership of the behema and dini mominos, but also the kaparas carbon, then now the person who took a neder and purchases Yedem's carbon, he could be makayim his neder be miskaper with that carbon that was mukdash al yidei amocher, because the mechira transfers the entire package, including the kapara. The Mishnah goes on to tell us after Tesam Bais that the Chiv Nezikin is only if that which was damaged belongs to Nechos B'Shel B'nei Bris. My Lemute my, what are you excluding? If you're going to tell me that the Mishnah had to be Machadish, that if my shar kills the shar of an akum, then I'm patur. Kamma, it's in a Mishnah explicitly. The Mishnah later on in Lamed Zayin and Beis Shor Shel Yisrael Shenag Shor Shel Akum Patur. The Gemara answers Tanav Adam Mefarish Enoch Hinami. The Tanav and Mishnah said it b'derech Tzara, and it's only the Mishnah later on in Daf Lamed Zayin that's going to interpret that Mishnah. By the way, as you may know, the Chazal were very sensitive to the fact that that this halacha, that if a Jewish-owned mazik destroys something of a guy, you don't have to pay, is a very sore, a sore nerve in anti-Semitism. The Goyim use this as a proof that we can look down on the Goyim and we don't consider them and so forth and so on. Then the Mishnah on Daf Tesav Beis says that the Chiv on Nezek is only b'nechasim yuchadim. What does that mean? L'me'utei mai. Rabbi Yehuda, l'me'utei, this comes to exclude a case where there were two shvarim and they pounced upon a shar, a third shar, and we don't know which shar was mazik. Zeh omer sharcha hizik, v'zeh omer sharcha hizik. When the nizak comes around to collect, each one of the Baalei Ashar points to the other Baalei Ashar. Go collect from him. And therefore, nobody has to pay. Gemara says, I don't get it. Hatani l'kamon. We already have that in a Mishnah later on in Lamed Hey. Hayu shnayim rodfim achar echad. The two shvarim are running after one shar. Zeh omer sharchiz, zeh omer sharchiz, shneim peturim. And the Gemara says again, Tanei, that maybe the Tana here is saying it b'derech Ktsara, and later on is going to explicate it. Maslisa Tana, we have a brisa that says that when it says nechasim yuchadim, is prat l'nichsei hefker. Yuchadim means it's got to be owned by someone, and hefker is not owned by anyone. Echidami, what's the case? If we were mazik a shor of hefker, man tovale, you don't have to tell me that you're potter because there's no one to demand payment. It's shor is hefker, it's ownerless. Ella, what are you going to say? You know, Torah de hefker, Torah di dan. If a shor of hefker was nogeach our shor, is lezel v'leisa. What are you telling me, that the shara of hefker is potter and the nizak has no recourse to get reimbursement? He'll just grab the shara of hefker. Who's going to stop him? And the Gemara answers, what's the case about Mishnah? B'shakadam v'zacha bo acher. The shar of Hefker was mazik, so at the time of the Maisa Hezek, it was ownerless. And then somebody comes along and he makes a zechiyah on the shar shel Hezek, the shar of mazik. The Mishnah wants to tell us that the Nizak has no reshus to be gova to collect his nezek from this shar, because the time of the Hezek, it was a shar shel Hefker. And what determines whether or not the Nizak has recourse to collect from the shar mazik? It's the moment of the Negicha, the moment of the Hezek. If at that moment of the Hezek, the shar was Hefker, therefore the Nizak has no recourse to collect from anyone, then even later on, when somebody is Zoch in the shar, he's not responsible to pay. But here, he quotes, who does he quote? He quotes the Rosh. The Rosh says the following: Kevan shebishas hahezek hoya shar hefker. Time the Ma'aser Negicha was hefker. Lo omrim shashar huchlat la nizak mishas Negicha. According to the Rosh, the Havamina here before the Mishnah's Chiddush was the halach of huchlat hashar, which means that by virtue of the hezek of Keren, the animal belongs to the Nizak. No one can be zochen. What I don't understand is what's the maskana? If the Rosh is saying that the shar is huchlat to the Nizak mishas Negicha, how could somebody else come and be zochen? What's the maskana here? So he quotes the Rambam, and apparently other Rishonim, that there's a pasuk here, Re'eu v'lo hefker. And that pasuk of Re'eu v'lo hefker is a miyut to the halach of huchlat. Even though the shar was hefker at the time of the nezek, and normally the nizak, we apply the principle of huchlat hashar, we don't do so unless it's shar Re'eu. But if it's shar shel hefker, we don't apply the principle of huchlat. But here he quotes a chiddush of the Grach, of Rab Chaim. Rab Chaim says that there's a fascinating halach here. The pasuk of Re'eu is excluding the ability of the nizak to collect from the shar after somebody was zoch in the shar subsequent to the negicha. Mashma, shalule pasuk. This is a typical Rab Chaim. What would have been the din without the gzeres hakosov of Re'eu? Nizak motzi miyad hazoches hashar mazik. The nizak would have rights to collect from the person who was zoch in the shar. Af shebishas negicha lo hoya shar lebailan. The shar was not owned by anyone. Says Rab Chaim, Muchach mikan shashibud shel hanizak b'shar tam shona mikol shar shibudim. B'shar shibudim tchila yesh shibud al ha'adam ha'chayev. Umitoch kach mishtabdim gal nechasa. Ve'ilu b'shar tam ha'shibud chal ha'shar af she'en lo bail. Wow. Mind-boggling. Because in the halach of shibudim, you start with the shibud hagavra. After you have the shibud hagavra, then that Gavra is also Meshubad for his Nechasim. But in the case of Shar Tam, it goes the other way around. The Shibud is Chal on the Chefta, on the Shar Mazik, even if it's Hefka. And hence the Habamina that that the Nizak could collect from the Zocha in the Shar. Okay. Now where are we up to? Yeah. Ravina Omar, Ravina has another explanation to Nechasim Miyuchadim. Lim'ute nogach v'achkach higdish. This is a pel of halacha. My shor was nogeach, and now I can go ahead and be magdish the shor. So we're talking about the Baal Shor Mazik. He's going to be magdish his shor l'mizbech or leberek habayis, and leberek habayis he quotes again in the name of Reb Chaim. And nogach v'yakach hifke, the same thing would apply if my shor was nogech and then I was mafke the shor. In both cases, there's no chiv tashlumin. And that's what the Mishnah means, the chosim yuchadim. Now, if you want to be machayiv the mazik to pay for the nezek, you need that this mazik is miyuchad. What does miyuchad mean? That it was shaykh to one person from the time of the nezek until the shas hamad b'din. And even though it was shaykh to demand payment at the time of the nezek, because it was miyuchadim tishechad, but now he went ahead and he was magdish it. Once he's magdish it, it's no longer shaykh l'adam echad. It's now shaykh to another person, meaning to Egdei. Or he was mafkir. You need that the Baal Ashar be the Baal Ashar Mazik, be the Baal Ashar from the moment of the Gicha until Amar B'din. It's a mind-boggling halacha according to Ravina. It means I could be mafkir my shar after the Negicha, or I could be magdish it and completely circumvent the halacha of paying this gay ashar. And the thought also occurred to me, he's going to bring the shar on the mizbeach. I mean, it's a shar on nagchan. They're very straight. Tanya Nami Hachi, we bring a brisa to support this with regard to a Mishnah later on at Daf Mem Daled Amid Beis, and a machlokis therein between Chacham and Rabbi Yehuda. It's a shor shel hefker shehemis adam. What would you say? Should we put the shor to death? It's hefker. Nobody owns it. So it depends. This is based on the Ramban. If the machayev of shor niskal is a punishment to the owner of the shor, he didn't watch his shor properly, went out and killed somebody, then it's a shor shel hefker, it's ownerless. There's no point to kill the shor. But if we're going to say the punishment is to the shor itself, because the shor is a killer shor, or if you want to say it in psychological terms, we have to prevent this shor from killing other people, then there would be a din of shor niskal. And the Mishnah later on in Mem Daled Amid Beis establishes that a shor shel hefker shehemis adam is chayav skila. Rabbi Yehuda dissents. He holds that the shor is potter, meaning there's no punishment for the shor, it's a punishment for the owner of the shor, but there's no owner of the shor, it's hefker. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, afilu nogach v'yakach higdish, nogach v'yakach hifker potter, shenemar v'huad b'bola v'hemis ha'ish, etc. So the Torah adds the word bolov, and bolov here is b'shas ha'adah, meaning when the Edom come to testify, which is during the shas ha'amar b'din. Ad shetei misav ha'amar b'din kshavin kechad. There's got to be one rishus, one owner, over the shar mazik from the time of the negicha until the ha'amar b'din. And if there's no such thing, because before the ha'amar b'din, the man was magdish the animal or mafkir the animal, then the animal is not put to death. Whereas the following kasha, there are three moments that are critical. T1, T2, and T3. T1 is the time of the negicha. T2 is the time of Hamad B'din. T3 is the time of the gevir. No, scratch it. T1 is the time of the negicha. T2 is the time of Hamad B'din. T3 is the time of the Gemar Din. Frek the Gemara, Ugmara Din Lo Ba'inon. You're telling me that from the pasuk you only need that he, the one Bailim, was an owner at the time of the Modavidin, but not at the time of the Gemara din. Doesn't the pasuk say Ashar Yisakel v'gam ba'ol of Yumas? So you see that the word ba'olim goes on the skila, which is the time of the Gemara din. The Gemara din hu dichsid. So Gemara answers, Ela Ema, we have to rewrite the Brisa. We have to add the words Ugmar Din. So we need that there's one single bailus from the time of the Negicha, going on to the time of Amar B'Din, and at the time of the Gemar Din. The Mishnah says, Chutz mi Rishus HaMiyuchedes L'Mazik, Ti Amar Le Turcha B'Shusi, my boy. If the shar was mazik in the rishus of the mazik says to the nizak, "What were you doing with your shar in my rishus? Who gave you permission to enter into my rishus?" And here there's a whole discussion: what happens if he allowed him to come into his rishus? Now the Mishnah goes on and says, "Urishus hanizak mazik," that this is also excluded from chiyuve tashlume nezek if it's rishus for both the nizak and the mazik. And the Gemara now is going to bring a machlokes with regard to the din of a shar that was mazik in a rishus that's owned jointly by two partners, rishus hashutfin. From the language of our Mishnah, rishus hanizak v'mazik, we can interpret that in one of two ways. Either it's a continuation of chutz mirshus hamyuches lamazik, means he's potter, or we could say it's a brand new paragraph, and it starts with these words of Rishus HaNizak v'Mazik, and we read it like this: Rishus HaNizak v'Mazik k'shehizak chava mazik, meaning that he's chay. Omar Av Chizda, Omar Av Vimi, Chotzer HaShutfim chayev ba al hashen v'al haregel. That if the shar of one shutuf was responsible for destroying the nechasim of the other shutuf, one shutuf against the other in a chotzer shutfim, chayev ba'al hashen v'al haregel. So if the nezek was through achilus peros or drisa beregel, hilucha behema, and all that, then the mazik is chayev. So even though it says in the parasha shem v'regel ubir b'stei acher, which is mashma that this soda belongs to one person, which means to the nizak and not to the mazik. Nevertheless, Rav Chizda holds that it understands that the kavanas HaTorah is to exclude rishus harabe, but not rishus hashutfim. V'hachikam, and this is how Rav Chizda interpreted our Mishnah. The mazik is chayiv chutz mirishus hamiyuchedes lamazik to potter. Why? Because the mazik says nizak, what are you doing in my rishus? Urishus hanizak v'amazik shehizak chav hamazik. We read it milara, that it's going on the next piece of the Mishnah, and you're chayiv. So in a rishus hamishutefes lenizak olamazik, you're chayiv. That's according to Rav Chizda. Rabbi Elazar Omar, no potter al hashen v'al haregel. The reason why you potter on shein v'al haregel is because it says ubir b'stei acher, and stei acher means a sodam yuchedes to the nizak, and only to the nizak. Here it's a chotzer shutfim. And Rabbi Elazar interprets that Mishnah according to his shita hachi Kamma. What did the Mishnah have in mind? Chutz mirshus yuchedes lamazik. Now, as we're going now back to the previous Bava in the Mishnah, where you potter if it's a Rishus of the Mazik, Sharcha b'Rishusi, my boy, Urishus hanizak v'Mazik, nami potur. So now we have to explain Ukshehizak Havamazik Lasuye, that we're talking about a shor shehizik bekeren, and then he's chayav. Gemara says, "Hanichol Shmuel." That works out according to Shmuel on Daf Beis Amid Beis, who says that when it says in the Mishnah shar, it's referring to regel. And now we know why we have to have a ribui for nesek shel keren, and that's called kshehizik chav hamazik lasuye keren. But El Rav, who says Tana shar lechol mili shar, that the word shar in our Mishnah includes regel, shein, and keren. So the Mishnah has already told us that you're chayiv for a shar b'nizkei keren is therefore chava mazik lasuye mai. Moretzes lasuye haduton rabbonon kishehizik chava mazik lahavi. Lavi means larabos. The four shomrim, shomer chinam v'ashol nosi socher v'socher. Sheizika behema bershusam. That now the shomer takes over the chiyuv shmira as if he were the bailim, and he has to pay for nizikin. Tam mishan chatzi nezek, mur mishan nezek sholem, and nifritz of balayla, osha partu a list of yatzav yizika pot. In other words, the shomer is only chayev to prevent nizikin to the same extent as his kabbalah shmira. So if there was an ones, let's say for example nifritz of balayla, so there's no pshi on the part of the shomer, then he doesn't have to pay the niza. Or partua listim, gazlonim, that's beyond his control. V'yotzav yizika pot. Omar shehizik chava mazik lohavi shomachina v'ashol v'nosoch v'asocher hechi dami. If you're going to say the azke Torah de mashil le Torah de shoel, if the shar of the mashil, meaning the owner of the shor, was mazik the shor, the shoel, how can it be possible that the Mishnah is telling me that the mashal has to pay the shoel? Lemole, the mashal has a right to say to the shoel, ilu azik the alma, even if my shor was mazik the moment of somebody else, and you were the shomer, is boys lishlume at. You would have to pay for the nezikin. You're chayiv to be shomer to prevent it from going out and being mazik. Is hashta now the aski l'shor di dan ve'ino l'shlume? What do I have to pay myself? Certainly I'm part from paying myself. Ella, but rather what does the Bryce have in mind? The aski Torah the shoel. L'Torah the mashil, that the shor of the shoel was mazik the shor of the mashil, and the Mishnah is being mechadish that the shoel is chayav b'nizkei shor shel mashil. The Gemara rejects that also, even though intuitively it sounds correct. And what is that? Le'molei. Why can't the mashil say to the shoel, ilu itzak mi alma? If my shor was destroyed, attacked by a shor of somebody else, boyis l'shlume kulit Torah, I would have to pay for nezek sholem. Why? Because hishalti lecha, I gave the shor over to you b'she'ela, and a shol is chayiv even for onsen. Is hashta the azkei Torah di dach. Now that your shor was mazik my shor, palga nizku de mishal misle, as a shoel, you have to pay me for damages. And even in the case of onus, you have to pay me for the entire damage that I suffered from. So how can you get away with chatzi nezek? Gemara answers liolam the askei shora, the mashil is shora the shoel. The shoel of the mashil was mazik the shor of the shoel. You asked me a question that the mashil should be potter because the shoel has the chiyuv shmira and he doesn't have to pay himself. Below kibul of shmiras nizaka. We're talking about a case where the kabbalah shmira was partial, was a only a segment of the shmira. He was makabel shmira to protect the mashil from losing his shor. Nothing should happen to the shor, but he refused to accept on himself the responsibility of preventing the shor from going out and being mazik others, and therefore the chiyuv of shmir on the shor is not shalo yazik, but shalo yinozik. And as far as shalo yazik is concerned, the original bailim, the mashil, remains the bailim of the shor, and he's responsible for the preventing the shor from going out and being mazik. Okay, then we'll stop here.